Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Daggett, and today I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks that'll hopefully help you improve your art, in particular your tattoo flash or Japanese style, traditional style tattoo flash. I had a few different requests for things that I didn't quite think needed their own complete tutorial or complete video lesson, so I thought I'd throw them in today. One of those was Japanese finger waves, and I had a video about a Japanese Hanyu mask I put up a couple of weeks ago, and I had someone request I do some of the tips and tricks I was talking about with texturing the horns. And then I also thought as a bonus I would throw in a couple of background elements. So there's some stuff on cherry blossoms and there's some stuff on maple leaves, and there's also a little bit of theory on my opinion, I guess, on what I think makes good art, and giving you good ideas for how to contrast things in your drawings and give you a little bit more depth and volume in your artwork. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Let's jump straight to the overhead and get into these tips and tricks. Let's go. Okay guys, so like I said, today we're going to be doing some tips and tricks and just giving you some elements and techniques that you can add to your drawings. So we're going to start with the horns. I'm going to be giving you 3 examples of different style texturing we can do for horns, and then you can put those into your own drawings, whether you're drawing a dragon or any other creature that you want to put horns on, and change the textures to give it a different appearance depending on the drawing that you're doing. So to start off for these, we're going to do the same horn 3 times. And we're going to draw in the main shape of the horn. So the first one is probably the simplest of the 3. It's the most simple, sorry. And that is that we're going to give it a rough edge, just by adding these little bumps and grooves as we go along. After we get to the tip of the horn, we're going to come back and give it those rough edges again. And then at the base, we can create these curves, and they're going to have those rough edges also. So then you're going to go in with your lining marker and just roughly follow those shapes. Now the shading for this first horn is really simple. We're going to come in from the top and do solid black. You might recognize this horn shape from the Hanyu mask tutorial. If you haven't watched that yet, you should go over and check that out. I'll show you how to draw a Japanese Hanyu mask in a sort of modern style. And in this case, the shading is going to be much the same. So we're doing solid black from the top, and then taking our watercolor brush and blending it down. So to texture this horn, we're going to be using a Pentel Touch Pen. Okay, so the brand is Pentel, and I guess the make of the pen is Touch. They come in a variety of different colors. You can get black. I think they've got pink, red, yellow, blue, orange. I think they have pretty much all the colors. They have green as well. And essentially what they are is a little ink marker with a semi-flexible brush nib. And so what we can do is create some really neat textures using the nib. Essentially, to do this, you start by touching very lightly. You increase the pressure, and as I increase the pressure, I start to rock my hand a little bit or give it a bit of a scribble, and then slowly lifting the pressure off and tapering it off towards the end. So I'll give you a demonstration here. Coming up, we start to add a bit of pressure, and we can taper that pressure off. You can also start lightly, add a little bit of pressure, come off again, add some more pressure, and taper it off. And you can do some short ones towards the top here. You can do as many or as little of these as you like, depending on how thick your brush nib is. Okay, so for the second horn, what we'll be doing is going along the outside and creating some rough sort of ridge shapes. At the bottom, we're going to do much the same we did on the first one and just add some bumps. And this is just to indicate where it sort of joins back into the flesh. Now the main difference here is on the inside of the horn, we're going to do some texturing in itself. So starting off at the bottom here, you can come around and do a little swirl. Just like that. Bring a line up, adding whatever little textures and bumps you want, and at the end we're just going to flick it back down towards the bottom. Maybe coming from the other side of this, we can do a similar sort of thing. Just trailing this one off towards the end. And then at the back, we can do the same sort of thing. So going in with your marker now, we're just going to outline this. Now in terms of shading this one, what we're going to do is choose the parts that you want to be your darkest areas. So underneath this top curve will be sort of a dark area. We're going to come in there with our black and then blend it out to white. And towards the bottom here, we'll do the same in here. The more black or the more shadow you add, the deeper this is going to look. It basically gives it more depth. And just following our line along the edge there. For this outside sort of line, we can do the same thing, adding a little bit of black where you want your darkest sort of shadows to be. And again, blending those out. Underneath this back one here, there'll be quite a bit of shadow back here. And of course coming up from behind here, and I want to add a pretty thick black shadow here because this will be the back of our horn. So depending on where your light source is, will change where these shadows sit and how heavy they are. So you can see that starts to automatically give the horn a little bit of shape, and it adds sort of crevices and a little bit more detail to the horn. So these parts of the horn look like they're coming out a little bit more, and the parts that are shaded darker look like they're more deep set into the horn. It adds a bit of volume to it. And then you can of course go in and do a little bit of your normal shading. We might do a little bit from the top here and just blending it out to white. You can leave areas of white as your highlight areas as well. Okay, going into our last horn texturing technique here. We're going to go ahead and start from the bottom this time. And we're going to draw in a couple of lines coming from a loop at the bottom. And they're going to come up and taper off. They're not going to join at the end. They'll be open towards the end, but they'll just taper up like that. From behind there, you can come out and up. Same on the other side. And from behind there again. Of course, the ones from the outside will get a bit thinner, as they still have to taper into the outline that we've previously drawn. And then towards the tip, you can just join them all up. Okay, outlining this is pretty straightforward. Coming from the bottom, we can come up, add a little bit of roughness to the lines to add a natural sort of curve to them, and bring them up just like that. So now to shade this this type of texture, or this type of shape of horn, we're going to come in from the back of this line here, adding a little bit of black shading to it, and then as usual we're just going to blend that up and out to white. Coming into this back one here, we'll do the same, but I want there to be a little bit more black, because of course this one will be in a deeper sort of shadow. And of course you can be a little bit more careful and precise while you're doing this. This is just a demonstration. And then for the one that's in the very center, we're going to use a makeshift palette, adding a bit of black ink to your page so that we're not getting solid black but more of a grey. And we can come in just like this and do a little bit of shading off the back edge. And of course leaving a little white highlight along that edge as our catch light, or our reflective light, sorry. And that's another really simple way of texturing the horns. So now you can see we've got 3 very different looking horns, but depending on the style that you're going for, depending on your style of drawing, and depending on the illustration that you're doing, you might like to change the texture of the horns a little bit. So this gives you a more traditional looking texture for sort of old school Japanese stuff. And this one here will give you a little bit more of a bony, decayed sort of look, to where bits of it are sort of falling apart and there's cracks and crevices in there. And the last one here will give you a really organic sort of bone structured look that would be closer or more similar to like deer antler or actual horns. It has that sort of thick bony look that I guess looks strong and natural, as opposed to this one that looks like it's falling apart all over the place. Okay guys, along with the horns, I did also promise I would go over the Japanese finger waves. I don't believe finger waves deserve a full length tutorial. They're quite simple to do once you have the basic sort of shape of the waves down. So I'm just going to do a really quick and simple one. If you want them in more detail, let me know in the comments down below. And of course, I can do a more in-depth tutorial if people are sort of struggling with it. But I think they're pretty straightforward and yeah, easy to get a hold of. So let's say, for example, I've got a shape that's here. To draw waves that are coming around it, I might come from underneath it. So we'll say this is like the body of a koi fish or something like that. To draw waves coming around it, I might draw a curve that comes around from underneath the shape. So this is the bottom edge of that shape. The curve will come from underneath it. From the tip of that curve, we're just going to draw a line that follows straight back. And then above it, just before we got to the end of the line, another little lump or another little part of water. I don't know what you're going to call that, but basically another little curved line. From above that, you can add another long curve. That's going to give us another part of the wave. And you can add another little bump. If you want to do a longer wave, you can come out like this. Do a small wave like that. And then from the front of that, you can extend it. Into a bigger wave. Coming from the other side here, we can do a little curve that comes back. It goes around and then flicks back. From under that curve, we can come out and do a big wave like this, or a big curved line. A little curve from underneath that, another large curve. So this is basically the process for drawing the finger waves. It's really straightforward. There's only a few really basic curved lines that go into it. So the first one is these long curved lines. The short curves, which essentially just piggyback off of these longer ones. And then these reverse curves. And they're kind of like drawing S's. So the reverse curves, we come down and reverse them like that. So you can come up and into a wave, if that makes sense. Okay, so continuing on with this one, we're going to finish this curve here and cut back like that. And we might bring this one a little bit further down, add in another small one, another big one, just like that. Add a couple of motion sort of lines in to where the waves are going to be. So obviously that's pretty straightforward. I do talk about style preference in a lot of my videos, and this is no exception. Obviously there's a way to draw finger waves if you want them to look traditional or, you know, in a specific fashion, but play around with them and find your own style of drawing the finger waves. I think that that's sort of a really fun thing to experiment with. And when you look at different people's designs, particularly their Japanese designs, everyone's waves will look a little bit different. So some people will do these really short, condensed waves, and they'll do lots of them. And then some people will do more of these really big, sort of pronounced waves. and not so many of them. So everyone's got a really different way of doing these, and you just have to play around with the angles of the lines to add some variety to them. Alright guys, so we're on to the last thing I said we would go through today, and this is just some little background elements. One of them will be cherry blossoms, and one of them will be maple leaves, and these are both going to be in a really simple format. So we'll start with the cherry blossom. It's really simple. We're going to do a circle as our first guideline, and a smaller circle in the middle for our second guideline. And then we're going to do 5 lines in the shape to make a star. Okay, so this would give us like 5 points of a star essentially. We're going to use those lines as the middle point or the center line of our petals. To start off with, we're just going to do little oval shapes for our petals. So going around, trying to keep everything sort of the same size, so the petals should be relatively the same size. Now at the end of each of the petals, you're going to cut back in and do a V shape. So just to properly demonstrate that V shape, at the end of your petals, you're going to cut in and back out. It's as simple as that, and you're going to go around and do that on all of your oval shapes. For the center of your flower, there's a few different ways to do this. I'm going to do it the simplest way that I know, and that is just to do dots all the way around the center of the flower. And then in between each of the petals, to give it leaves, you're basically going to do these little triangle, curved, triangle, oval sort of shapes. I don't know what you call them, like little almond sort of shapes. And now you've got a really, in like 2 seconds, you've got a really simple cherry blossom. So coming in to line this one. Now, as you can see with the cherry blossom, it only took about, 2 or 3 seconds to draw that. And that was quite a rough sketch. If you work, a couple of seconds longer, you can probably do a much better job. Which means that if you're doing a big design, like a big dragon or a snake or something, and you want to throw in a whole bunch of cherry blossoms, you could cover your entire page with cherry blossoms and it really won't take you that long. Because when you draw them like this, it's really simple, but they add a lot to your drawing and give them a lot of shape. To give a variance on this, we're going to add 2 more cherry blossom shapes to our design elements here. One of them is really simple, and this is just a petal. So we're going to do an oval shape. One side, we're going to taper like this. We're going to do our little V, and then taper back. So one side will be like an almond shape, and the other side will be that V. And the last sort of cherry blossom shape we're going to do is also quite a simple one. We're going to come in and draw one of our straight on petals, like this. Now to one side of that, you're going to come out and back in. To the other side, we're going to go out, back in, and then we're just going to do the little V shapes on the inside of those gaps there. Little triangles at the back. And draw in a nice simple curved line there for our stem. So if you draw a combination of this cherry blossom, these cherry blossoms, and the petals through your drawing, you can already see how it starts to come together and look like falling cherry blossoms. Sort of flowing in the wind. And a lot of the time people just sort of don't know how to put these background elements in a smooth way so that it transitions well into the rest of the drawing. And this is a really simple way to combine a few different elements and put them together. Okay, so the last sort of simple element for your backgrounds that I thought I'd go into today would be the maple leaves. A lot of the Japanese designs will have these maple leaves in them. They're really easy to draw. There's a few different styles I like to do, but we'll do 2 of them today. So one of them is going to be a circle for our center, a straight line that runs, it curves at the bottom here, and then runs straight like this. Now the straight end should be a lot longer than our little curve at the bottom. Anything on this side of the circle will now be smaller than this side. That's basically the way it's going to go. So then, using this as a center point, we're going to come off on this sort of angle, and we do the same thing mirroring that on the other side. And then from here, we're just going to draw in a straight line. Doesn't get simpler than that. So to draw in our first part of the leaf here, You can draw in 2 curved lines, just like that, following that center line. From there, we're going to draw another 2 curved lines like this. They should be following that line, so I've made a mistake here. You can just correct where that center line is. Okay. And we'll do the same on the other side. Now the shape of these curved lines should be a little bit shorter than this one. So this straight line will be a lot longer than these ones. You're going to do the same for the section below it. The point at which all of these areas join will be on that first circle that we drew. And then of course you can draw in your stem. And that gives you a pretty basic shape for your maple leaf. To texture these, you can do some sort of bumpy textures along the edge of the petals. Or sometimes I like to just do them smooth like this. It depends how much detail I'm adding to the drawing. To give you a little tip on that, if your drawing has a lot of detail in it, keep the background elements nice and simple and let the details of that drawing really stand out. If parts of that drawing don't have a lot of detail, you can add more detail to your background elements, which will then further emphasize the boldness of the subject matter. So yeah, like if your subject matter has a lot of detail, don't put too much detail in your background stuff. Keep it really simple, like the cherry blossoms and maple leaf that I'm showing you here. But if your subject matter is quite a simple one, maybe it has a lot of smooth, bold areas or really bold, flat colors, then you can add more detail to your background materials, and they add really, really nice contrast. So not only can you have contrast in your color and in your shading, but you can also add contrast with the amount of detail that's in your background elements or your subject matter. Okay, for the last maple leaf we're doing here, we're going to do a curved line, just like that. From that curved line, you're just going to pick a center point, and this will be the center here. So you want this, if this is the tail end where the stem of the leaf will be, you want your center point to be lower than this top line. And you want to draw in your semicircle because the leaf's going to be folded in half. So this is your full circle here. This one's folded in half. So there's your circle. And now you can just draw in those lines for your other petals. Not petals, I don't know what you'd call them. Your other fingers, we'll call them fingers. And now from there, you can draw in your curves. Remembering to stop them at that semicircle. And then from behind these petals, you can draw in some of the opposing petals, which you only see a little bit of because of course this is folded in half. Okay guys, that is it. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Like I said, it was just sort of some tips and tricks on a few things, my thoughts on drawing tattoo flash and traditional designs. And also, just like I said, people had requested a few things and I didn't think they required a full in-depth look on how to draw those things. And of course, I wanted to try and include as many things in today's video as I could, so I tried to get through a few of those requests, and then hopefully in the next video we'll get back to some actual tutorials. But anyways, like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find some value in it and learn to create better artwork through it, and these are just things out of my experience. If you want to see more of my work, head over to Facebook at Dagger Designs. You can keep up with my online portfolio. All of my video updates go onto there, but of course you should subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you want to let me know what you want to see next time, leave a comment in the comment section down below letting me know what you want to see, and of course give this video a thumbs up. And as always guys, for more great content, hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that notification bell to stay up to date with my new videos. If you don't hit the notification bell, you won't be notified when new videos go up, and it's really important you do so. That's your way of keeping up to date with what I'm doing and what's happening over here on my channel, and it's my way of keeping up with you guys and making sure I'm putting content out there that you guys want to see. Alright guys, I'll see you next time. Peace out. Bye.